Right, this is my Squire lock, strengthened, solid hardened metal. This is the key that's been used by one of my bosses for quite a while. It goes in, but the ball bearing gets stuck, so you've got to give it a little shake and then it opens and closes no problem. Do that, locks, give it a little shake. Once it's open, it sort of opens no problem. Occasionally the ball bearing gets stuck again. Now I have cleaned all of this up because this was rusty, and the original problem was somebody had locked it but they hadn't quite pushed it all the way down, so it was stuck about here, and then they did that and the key wouldn't come out, so they left it with the key in like that because they couldn't get it to unlock and they couldn't get it to lock because it was under pressure, because the pin is actually quite large on the gate. So the way to get around it, see, I've got it stuck again. The way to get around it is to actually turn it to the unlock position and then drop it back in. It's going to get stuck now, isn't it? Yeah. And this is the problem. Occasionally the key gets stuck. Goes in and out, no problem. It just gets stuck there. That's mainly because of this ball bearing, as far as I can tell. See, that way it's fine. It comes out. This is the most common used key. This was my chap who I rent my unit off. This is his key, so he opens and closes it all the time. And when you turn it, you can see the this lifts up, and that's obviously pushing the ball bearing into place, and that's why it got caught, because the ball bearing wasn't quite in place. But yes, it does unlock, no problem at all. I soaked it in WD-40, and it cleaned all up. I used I haven't actually got it here. Basically, I used a windscreen wiper blade just to free all these up, and you can hear they all pop. There is a strange bit because it's got a little hole in the back there, and then there's a gap, and that gap there has no pins in, and then you hit the first pin, which I'm caught up on now. So you got pin 5, pin 4, pin 3, pin 2 and pin 1, and then you're off. As far as I can tell anyway. It's quite difficult to feel them all because they're all quite rounded. Pin 1 there, pin 2 there, pin 3, pin 4, pin 5, and then nothing. But there's a little light divot just there, and it gets caught up on that quite regularly when I've got the pick in. This is my key, still on my keys because I haven't taken it off yet. And obviously my key's hardly been used. And it's got quite a strange sort of big peak in the middle, and this is where I get stuck. I press those ones in very, very slightly. That one is pin 6 as far as I can tell, and then pin 5, and I get those two set, and then I move to this pin and it's bouncing, lovely. I move to this pin and it's sort of sticky if you put a little bit more tension on. So this can then freeze up a little bit more again when you push it in slightly, and then this pin you pop it all the way in and it bounces back out again. You get no tension at all on it. You go back to these two and they click an extra click, and that one there is the first one that sets. It's basically so low you just have to press that gently at first. The problem is when you're pressing this one, your pick is sitting and it's pushing this one up, and I think what the problem is when I'm trying to push this one past and this one gets stuck, I mean it probably gets stuck, it pops up, but it also, the pick ends up inside because I've got my tension bar in there, which is covering all of that space there. You can see how much space it takes up. As soon as I go to pick, that one there, I end up lifting this pin up too far and I think it's locking there. That's what I think's happening. But yes, that key works as well. It locks nicely. As I say, occasionally it gets stuck when you're trying to take the key out, which is annoying. It's just that ball bearing in the top isn't allowing the lock to go all the way back around. Anyway, obviously I've got the multi-lock for my new gate key, which are hellishly expensive and surprisingly easy to pick. Right, let's have a go. Now, one of the problems I've had picking this, which is why I want the top of the keyway up and out, is that here you've got a metal, don't know how well it's going to show up on the video, you've got a metal cover inside that rotates freely. Not fully freely, it goes halfway. And behind that is like the key actually sits in that bit there. So when you put it in, it actually goes all the way down into that cover, and it goes flush up against the core, which is just there. Just underneath that you've got a little bit here, just to be able to get a tension bar in, but that's touching the pin there, pin 1. Now if I put my tension bar in here, because it's quite an open bit at the top here and there's nothing to stop it moving, it just slips off. Now earlier on I did actually manage to get this for the first time ever to tension there, but it's extremely difficult. I think I used the narrow one actually, which was just like that. I've managed to get it to tension, so I can get a little bit of tension on there. That's how I'm going to try and pick it this time, but I'm going to start the video again. Now the problem I've got is the narrow one, because it's quite a wide way, I can't get anywhere to grip on that side. I can get it to grip if it's all the way in. Trouble is, I'll just use the Gosso for this. The pins are just there, and when you're doing the back pins, you're actually lifting the front pin up quite a long way, and it's obviously, it's not the higher rise on these front pins, so I think what I'm doing is ending up oversetting the front ones, trying to pop the back ones. So I've used the narrower, which is the narrowed one, and I managed to get it so it sits just on the edge of that little lip on the inside, on the actual core, because remember the outer bit isn't the core, and it gives you just enough room to get in. I'm still having trouble picking it though, because when you get halfway around it jumps. When the lock jumps around, basically this ends up sitting there and it just drops off, and you end up with the tension bar like that around that side, and you can take it out again and place it back in because the core does not spring back. That's what happens there. It ends up going down to that location. It just jumps off. If I use the thicker side, it gets a good grip, but I've got to push it all the way in, because if I'm just on the edge there, because it's so worn, it just sort of slips off like that. So you've got to have it all the way in order to get it there. Then you have the other problem. That's pin 1, and you literally, you have to sort of lift pin 1 up. Now I'm using the narrow one here. I have been obviously trying with the standard pick, and you just get caught up on that pin 1 all the time. I mean, in order to pick it, you've got to actually put it at this angle to do pin 1. It's a nightmare, and as soon as you put the pick in, you're already on the springiness of pin 1. Just to show you how low the pins are, I'll turn the pick around. That is on the picks, just there. That's on the pins, sorry. So you can see that there's no real room in between the bottom of the edge of the pick there and the edge of there, and because of the shape of this keyway, the pick just turns around in it. It just goes nicely around, so you really are right up against the edge there. I have tried picking it this way up as well, but the problem is, because it's rounded at the top, the actual lock, it's because it's rolled around a little bit, it just jumps off no matter where you put it, because the actual lock itself is quite warm. And this is my practice lock. Anyway, I think that's long enough for this.